An excerpt from The Forgotten Carols by Michael McLean. Constance checked and double-checked, but there were no convenient bus routes to the address she would be attending for the next few weeks, and inasmuch as the hospital would be covering expenses, Constance took a taxi. Since the daily routine of her life had not required her to visit this part of town before, the closer she got to her destination, the more unfamiliar everything became. The cab driver was not a chatty soul, for which Constance was grateful. She thought about asking him to pick her up at the end of her working day and possibly make this routine for the next few weeks. But then it occurred to her that she might appear too forward, and that might encourage a familiarity she knew would make her uncomfortable. So she said nothing. As the taxi began to slow down, her attention shifted from the new neighborhood she was entering to the fare on the meter in the cab, and she worried a bit about what kind of tip to leave the driver. Is it like tipping a waiter? She wondered. And if so, how does one judge the service in a taxi ride? Since the cabbie had driven safely and quietly, she decided to add 10% to the fare and ask for a receipt. When she got out of the taxi and looked at the house she was about to enter, her first thought was, so this is how the other half lives. It was beautiful. Even though it was December, and a cold one at that, she could see that the expansive grounds around the place had been well manicured. Constance wasn't sure what size of house could rightly be called a mansion, but it occurred to her that this might be one. She walked slowly, not because she was afraid to enter, but because she was amazed that she was actually the one chosen to work here. Maybe Mr. Halifax believed she was more competent than she had ever realized. Then something so foreign, so shocking, so bizarre happened that Constance couldn't fully comprehend it, and wouldn't for some time. She caught herself skipping towards the front door. Although she took only a few skips, it was the kind of thing a young girl with a name like Connie might have done while fantasizing that she was a princess in a magic kingdom. Suddenly, Constance became frightened. Her heart was actually pounding, and she became temporarily paralyzed on the path to the front door entrance of the estate. For a few moments she trembled and shivered as if from the cold. But it wasn't that. What scared her so was the realization that for an unexplained moment she felt totally carefree, like a child at play. How could that have happened? And how could she have let it? She tried to shake off her feelings like someone who shakes off snow that collects on a winter coat during a storm, but she needed several deep breaths to regain her composure. When she finally felt in control and competent to perform her duties, she rang the front doorbell and waited. And waited. And waited. For a moment, she felt a hint of panic. Maybe she was at the wrong address. Maybe something had gone wrong inside. Maybe... From behind her came a voice that startled her. "It's not locked. Just open the door. And if you wouldn't mind, hold it for me, please." She turned around and saw only a large, fresh-cut fir tree looking a bit like an evergreen missile rocketing towards her. She could see only the legs of whoever was propelling the tree and assumed they belonged to the voice she just heard. The tree showed no signs of slowing down as it approached the front door, and Constance was afraid that if she didn't open the door quickly, she might be run over. She pulled the storm door open and held it with her foot as she turned the oversized doorknob on the front door. At precisely the same moment she pushed the door open, she felt fresh Christmas tree needles carrying her into the entry of the house. Once inside, she maneuvered her way out of the clutches of the tree and spun free only long enough to watch the flash of green race on into another room. Like a magnet pulling her against her "when will I be properly introduced" will, she followed the tree. When it stopped, so did she. "Thanks, I didn't think I'd make it in without dropping it or breaking something," said the voice that had carried the tree. "Just make yourself at home and I'll be right back. Gotta wash the pine sap off my hands." He disappeared into another room before the nurse got a good look at him. Now what was she supposed to do? Making herself at home wasn't something she knew how to do very well in her own place, let alone someone else's. The branches on the evergreen were still bouncing a bit from all the activity, and, though Constance didn't notice, so was she.